Oh, okay, great. Good morning, everyone. I'm Reshma from Intel, and I am helping out to moderate some of these Dash community meetings this week, as Christina is out of office. We had a very good meeting yesterday on high availability. I will paste the link to the document here presented by AMD Pensando. Please go through this document and add your review comments to it. And yeah, so what Christina had said was that this meeting format is an open forum. So today, if you have any questions, please, we can discuss the open PRs that need reviews or any other discussions that you may want to have today. Yeah, let me share the screen to show the PR that I was talking about, the AMD Pensando PR. Sharing. Here it is. So this is the one we discussed yesterday, and I'll paste the link in the chat. Yeah, so does anyone have any PR that they want to discuss today, or any other topics?
I can go over some of the open PRs if you'd like.
Sure,
and
please.
Also mention a few that were closed recently that might have escaped people's notice. It's okay.
Would you like to share?
Yeah, I'll take the screen.
Okay.
And so last week we had presentation on this framework, kind of a sneak preview, and it took all the time. So we didn't take time to review some PRs that had been closed in the days preceding that. I just wanted to just mention them so people are aware. One of them was, find this fixed IPv6 packet noise, which we talked about in some previous meetings where it was a matter of disabling IPv6 in the Linux stack in the test environment so that we don't get IPv6 control plane packets breaking test cases because we're receiving packets we didn't expect. So that's in there. But then shortly after that, our XCSC development team actually added a feature at my request where you can disable IPv6 when you deploy XCSC. So the problem's kind of fixed twice now, the Band-Aid fix and then the proper fix. So that's been synced. It's working. And then this documentation folder reorganization, something that Christina had been working on with Michael Miele, who you may remember from some months ago. He was a technical writer working with Christina. He's been volunteering his free time, even though he's currently not working for Microsoft. He actually came and did some cleanup here in the documentation, and that was to remove a layer of directories in the documentation folders that was causing people, let's say, extra work, extra clicks. There's a level of folders called requirements and one called requirements and one called design. And it turned out it was just annoying people. So he flattened the structure a little bit and cleaned it up, and I helped review that. So that was closed yesterday.
That's great.
And one more happened, this fixed Docker and Makefile permissions, which I've talked about a number of times. We did merge it just before the last meeting, last week's meeting. So there's much less use of the sudo command in the makefiles, and that will make people's lives easier. The only time it's invoked is when you do some Linux networking where you have to have root permission. So I just wanted to cover some of those so that, just for closure. And then let's look at some of the open PRs. One is, let me find it here. Let's see, it's probably this one here. This one I've worked on quite a bit, and it needs some brave volunteers to try it. But basically, everything now will be stored in the Azure Docker registry or Azure Container Registry. And so this is a significant amount of work to get it all working. But basically, Docker files and make files and everything have been enhanced so that everything's not being published to my personal Docker Hub anymore. It's now going to ACR. And I want this to, bake for a while, and if anyone wants to try it out, that would be nice. I've also documented the workflows for maintaining Docker files. Right now, it's just been a black art that few people have had to work with. I think myself and Marian were the only ones doing Docker files in the Dash project. And I don't want that to be a black art, right? It should be something that anyone with the right permissions can do. And so I've documented the workflows for that in this request, and I've got extensive instructions, and I've got diagrams on the workflows. There's multiple different possible workflows. You can see there's quite a bit of detail here. So the ask is for the community and for Microsoft is there should be a few people with maintainer access, because you have to have access to the main Dash repo in order to create branches. And we need branches in the main Dash repo in order to publish images. So there's a little bit of like administrative aspect to this. Not everyone can just mess with the Docker files because it requires permissions from the main repo to publish. So we probably need a few people as backup who can be, nominal maintainers who can understand and work with the Docker files as needed. Because these Docker files are essentially central resources of all the building resources and some of the logic. And we need a few people who can kind of step in when they need to. So that's just like an open item. Maybe we need to make a note on that. At some point, we should have a few people try some of these workflows, make sure they understand them, they can step in. For example, Marian, you're going to be, I assume Marian, you're in this meeting?
Yeah, hi.
Yes.
Hi, Marian. So, we can talk offline too, but we probably want to work a little bit together on this, a little transfer of information, because you'll be making new Dockers for the BMB2. And so some of this will come into play. And you'll probably be able to use this workflow here, which is simpler, because you already have maintainer write permissions to the repo. But I just wanted to bring that people's attention. There's this sort of tribal knowledge that I'm trying to codify.
So do we need one person from each company to really volunteer for this?
It wouldn't be a bad idea, or at least have 2 or 3 people. It may look more daunting than it really is, but sometimes you have to go through it a few times to get it. GitHub operations are sort of complicated enough without them adding Docker publishing to it. So, yeah, I would say if a few people want, we could even have a working session sometime and just go through some of this, right? But it's here documented, so if something happened to me tonight or tomorrow, there'd be something here. So that's that, and so that's baking, and there's no urgency to commit this right away, so there's time for people to try it out. And then I wanted to mention that Hanif's been working on this IPv6 Acl support, and Mukesh and I have been reviewing and communicating with him, and we're ready to approve this in case anyone has any last words they want to weigh in on it. It's pipeline support. He's also working on test cases that he's made some progress on, but he's not ready to commit those because there's some issues. But I move that we submit this change, today, let's say, and maybe we'll wait till end of day in case anyone wants at the last minute to look at this and weigh in. But there's already been some review. So that is.
Would anyone need some more time to look into the Ipv6 Acl support or any other PRs that was discussed today? Yeah, Chris, if somebody wants to wait till end of week.
Yeah, end of week is fine, I suppose.
Sure.
Main thing we want to avoid is too much backlog. If there's lots of work in progress, we start stepping on each other's toes. But I think in this case,
Yeah.
pretty quiet.
Mm-hmm. Sure.
And then I think this one here, maybe does Intel want to talk about this one today? Because it brought up some issues about pipeline, completeness, which I want to have some words about that at some point too.
Mm-hmm. Sure, we have a couple of items to discuss, definitely.
Okay. Well,
Yeah.
I've finished what I wanted to talk about today. So
Okay.
I can stop my sharing if anyone wants to. If you want to talk about this today or tomorrow, that's fine.
Yeah. Yeah, Chris, I will take care
Thank
about
you.
this first pull request. Thank you. So
Thank you, Chris.
let me just share my screen quickly.
Yeah, sorry, Chris. Thanks a lot for doing this ACR part. So I volunteered to try this one out and send you some feedback.
Thank you very much. Yeah, it's a lot. There's a lot there, but once you do it a few times, it makes sense.
Yep. Thanks.
Thank you, Hanif. I think Waldemar Mitnick may also volunteer at some point. Yeah, so we'll also try it out and let you know, Chris. And
Right.
Just for everybody's information, that Keysight, Chris and team and Intel, we meet often, bi-weekly, to discuss all the test-related items in terms of test cases or CI, etc. Waldemar Mitnick, please continue.
Yeah, sure. Do you see my screen?
Yes.
Okay, great. Yeah, so today I want to talk about the two pull request. Actually, I will be talking about the one that is the first pull request. It's about the test cases, and we also have another pull request where we starting adding the test plan. Probably Anton will cover this. So first of all, I start from this pull request where we adding the basic, let's say, infra and starting adding the more test cases overlay and actually VNet to VNet test cases, PTF test cases, let's say, to the dash repo. So here is the, let's say, brief description of this pull request, what we are doing here, about the main changes, what has been added, what are limitation currently, our future plan for these test cases. That's one of the review from the Chris already. So we want to make some modification into this pull request to avoid some duplication stuff. So this is something that we want to address. And also I will show just quickly the test cases and where everything is located. So we are going to put the PTF test cases under dash pipeline test Sysrift PTF folder. Okay, there is some files that are duplicate from the side. This is what we want to remove and avoid this duplication. But the main piece here is the side dash VNet test case. So which is too big, I would say. So yeah, so we have some basic, let's say, utility stuff added that each of the test cases will use, and added few use cases for the outbound inbound testings. Of course, it will be still updating, and more use case and fixes will be coming in like next weeks, right? And we have more and more use cases. So anyway, for everyone to know where PTF will be located, maybe someone will have, some confusion about why it is located in dash pipeline test folder. Maybe it makes as we'll have some, suggestion where it should be placed, let's say, better. Maybe we'll suggest some better place. So any comments actually are welcome. So please go review, and have any comments. So we'll be glad to address them. But this is just a basic and first, let's say, pull request where we are going to add VNet test cases. But as I said, we are going to add more. Yeah, and if we go back to the pull requests, so we also starting adding the overlay test plan. So probably Anton, if you're on the meeting, can you cover this pull request? Okay,
Yeah,
I will
sure.
stop my sharing.
You can keep because there's
Okay.
not much to show, so you can open it just so main is actually the description. So we put some landing page for the all test plans, and right now here we have 2 drafts for the ENI test plan and VNet to VNet test plan. So yeah, I just would like that people have put some comments because we already we are right now working on it. We are actually doing automation of those test cases. We even have some files that we are going to commit soon, and some basically fixes we are going to extend those test plans by the way, so adding some new test cases, but you can take a look already and give your comments basically to anything, to the structure, to the to the scenarios. If you see that something important is missed, yeah, please go and give us some comments that we will then we'll be able to handle issue or to put test case. Right now, what is automated, we are putting test names. So something is that not automated right now, that it says just a hyphen. So yeah, so that's a work in progress anyway. So everybody can take a look and give you comments. And one also I want to raise a little bit again the questions that Vladimir already asked is the place for the test cases, because right now we have some from my understanding some kind of confusion. We have some test folder in the root which kind of supposed to be the place for the tests from my side. On other hand, current CI is running test cases from the dash pipeline, and I would like to stabilize actually the place for the production test cases. So because something that Vladimir pushed is actually a production test case that is going to be used for verification of the implementation of the real implementation of the dash. And let's set folder, because for doing next pull request for committing ENI test plan and the VNet and extension to the VNet to VNet use cases according to the test plan that I pushed in the pull request, I'd like to have some stable place where to push all files, how to link utilities, tools, and everything else. So if people here have some comments about the placement where we should use root test folder or somehow stick to the dash pipeline, so yeah, please give your comment here.
Well, this is Gerald. I think Intel, Keysight, Mellanox, I think between the 3 companies, you've done most of this. You could probably decide amongst yourselves. I mean, but I don't know, since it's all your content, maybe you guys could just decide on one area and just make the decision and do it, as opposed to I don't think anybody else in the community is going to actually be as opinionated.
Okay.
Sure. Maybe what we can do, one way to do this is to file an issue, and then we can kind of have a discussion thread that way.
Yeah.
That way we can not clog up the meeting with I think it's a good idea. Yeah. I knew this day was coming, and I'm open for whatever. I think the Dash pipeline test directory was kind of a sandbox to get some test cases going in the first place. But we probably need to have production level tests, up in the main test directory. I agree with that. Just right. Kind of. So it's high time we address this. Anton or Vladimir, if you want to open the issue, and then we can have a lively discussion and hash it out there. I'm open to whatever.
I think this is a great idea. So we can start an email thread, Vladimir, Mitnick, and Anton, and then
an issue actually in the file a dash issue in the issues.
File a dash issue. Okay.
Yeah,
that sounds
way.
good.
Yeah,
that sounds good.
Open to the public, and that's the GitHub. Yeah. It can be 300 threads. It doesn't matter. It's free storage. And on a related topic, some of our meetings are kind of one-on-one, or just a few people working it's come up that there's some discrepancies in the behavior of the BMV2 model that some tests aren't going to pass right now or lacking in functionality. So 2 examples right off the top of my head from today's conversations. The VNet in test has some questions or issues, or we need the VNet in functionality to work the way it's supposed to. And there's a question of that. And the other is ACL groups aren't really implemented and working in the behavioral model. And we really want to start writing test cases for all of those. So what I've asked people is to try to come up with like a concise list of what are the gaps we need to close, and can we focus on those as a community? And maybe we'll have a list of items for tomorrow's behavioral model working group. Because I feel like some of these things are just out there, they're not being closed, and they're preventing like the real test work from being done. And I think Vladimir, you brought up some things Monday, some issues of your test plan that won't actually work in the behavior model. And Anton brought up some other things with me this morning on the VNet in. Does anyone have any comment about the BMV2 and how complete they think it is to implement VNet in and VNet out?
I would let everyone here talk about it. And quick mention is that we have the behavioral model meeting as well on Thursdays. Do we want to discuss more there and note down the points here? Both are open. It's up to everyone here if we want to discuss it here.
Yeah, probably. I guess I wanted to plant the seed in this meeting that
Sure.
have things to talk about.
Mm-hmm.
The BMV2, we've been moving along, but I think we need to have some like crisp definitions of what do we want working when. And it's almost like test-driven development. We want some test cases to be complete and work. So let's do everything we need to make those test cases work, right? And have some crisp definitions. I think it's time we do that.
Yeah, I want to, as I've worked recently on this one, and I believe we lack quite a bit in terms of test cases availability that we have. I think we have implemented good amount of functionality for the VNet. In fact, it is almost ready, right? But we don't have the test cases to test a variety of different areas, and also to ensure that, okay, we are not going into any regression, right? So, I mean, we thought that we had V6 routing and V6 processing working, but during my recent testing, I found out that there were some issues, right? There were bugs that I fixed, which were not related to Ipv6 Acl, but while really, modifying the VNet test case, I found out that, okay, there were things that we could have caught earlier, right? So yes, there are definitely gaps there, but at the same time, I also noticed that, okay, we do need to fix a lot of things in our infrastructure, right? Whereby what is going on right now is we can have a setup in terms of, we run the BMV2 switch, we run the Site-Thrift server, and then we issue, commands through the client, right? So right now, what is going on is that when some issue occurs in running the test, the cleanups are not happening very well, and you do need to kill everything and restart everything in order to, get to the next test, right? So those are the things that we need to also fix from that point of view. And another thing that also I noticed that as just giving a feedback as part of going through a workflow is that there is a lack of documentation, right? That we need to really have to see how do we introduce a new test case, and how do different test classes get called, what is the order, where do things go, and so forth. So there's a lot of things that I actually figured out by just trying it out, reading the code, reading through the things like that. So I think we do need to have quite a bit of things that we can outline, and then start addressing them one by one.
Yeah, Hannah, that's good feedback. Thanks. Just a quick answer to the question about the documentation. There was, just because of lack of time, there's really no documentation on like how to use PTF. And some of the issues you brought, like how to run a test case, how to add one, people who do PTF all the time know how to do that implicitly. It's kind of like standard fare, but there could be a nice intro page or at least a couple of paragraphs giving the highlights. And, you know, you and I had some back channel discussions about how to do a test case by itself, etc. That bears a little more work, bears a little more documentation.
I see. This is good feedback for sure. We had added the PTF README, you know, just when Chris was actually about to start the CI part, and he had asked similar questions, and so we quickly put together a document. Hanif, we will share that with you, and please give us any feedback and how we can improve on that. We can certainly add more to it.
Absolutely, absolutely. And I want to add one plug here. You know, thanks a lot to you know, Chris and Mukesh both, especially on the Chris for helping me out over the weekend and over, you know, on this Friday night and so forth, as I was trying to, you know, get those testing done. And you know, Chris, you're a lifesaver. You know, like literally, as I was getting blocked, you were unblocking me. So thank you so much.
Sure.
Thanks for trying it out, you know.
Yeah. No, enthusiastic users is really what we need, you know. So thanks for being brave. And you know, as I get time, I'll try to fill in some of these gaps in the documentation too, so people don't have to, you know, spend so much time learning the PTF 101. But when it comes to test cases, for example, when we add functionality or change functionality in the pipeline, again, I think we ought to get some kind of a consensus in the community that or dissension. But if a P4 developer changes something or adds something, it would be nice if either at that time or right afterwards, we have a test case to validate that functionality and also to catch regressions in the future. I think like the VNet in is an example where I know Anton is trying to get a test case working for that, and the P4 code, we may have discovered that there's some issues. And so we need to have, when we create a feature, we need to try to write a test for it at the same time or very shortly thereafter. Otherwise, we have technical debt accumulating, and then we have resources lined up, even budgets created to get people to write tests, and then they hit blockers because it's not even actually working yet. So I just want to impress on people the need to try to reduce our technical debt and keep our balance 0 or higher, not negative. So I'm hoping we can come up, maybe tomorrow we can come up with a hit list of what are the things we need to close in on or verify, you know, in what order, so that we can make meaningful progress. Because, you know, I know Keysight and Intel, we've engaged services, and there's, you know, people being hired and work being done, but we don't want to have blockers because it just slows things down.
Sure, Chris.
Yeah, I just want to add that Anton has a very extensive test plan. I think he has added the link to that test plan in the chat. If not, we will add it for sure. If you could please go through that. Anton, would you like to present that and just show how the, you know, the layout is, what is where?
Yeah, okay, sure. I will.
Okay.
Okay, so let me, okay, probably better to open it from here. One second. Okay, so like, please take a look that we have at this moment added like landing page. Yeah, so I put it into the test docs, test plans. That's why I'm asked that question actually. So what we expect to have where to put. Okay, the doc test plans, and here's the landing page. I will add actually the VNet test plan link here. So right now it has some overview, because we will have multiple different use cases and requirements. So like right now I put test suites that we expect to cover. At this moment we covered in the Intel ANI configuration and VNet to VNet configuration. Also we should have like separate test suite for connection tracking, for ACL, for other VNet use cases. And I expect that in future that here that we will have some links to the existing test plans. And by the way, so I added requirements. I combined everything what I found in the HLD, and also like please take a look. So if you have some comments, I would like to fix it, because in some places I found, for example, for roads per ENI 100K, in another documentation I found 200K. So actually what's we expect. And also that's one I heard that that's a minimal number, so that performance should be more. That flows per card 64 million. So like from
Yeah, I
prints
think,
from.
hey, Chris, didn't we just update this so that to remove the confusion?
Yeah, there hasn't been a discussion about it.
Okay.
Okay.
I don't know
So,
what version Anton is using, but we did update the numbers recent.
Right. Mm-hmm.
okay, nice.
That's
So like
fine. We will, yeah, we'll go through and get the latest for sure. I actually probably was thinking of a different document, but I guess I don't remember which one that was. Maybe we can present it in the next meeting. Yeah. Yeah,
okay,
this
so
sounds
nice.
great.
So
Thank you.
that's good, because like see that I especially put in many places that's like to clarify in bold, like just where the places I found like ambiguous, and I didn't find like an exact number what we expect. Like, and from here we can actually go to the two test plans that we have. One is ENI, so we just for create, remove various scenarios for the ENI. So yet again, I put some requirements from the HLD to understand the purposes and the objectives of the test plan. And here the suites. So I want to like to give some like spoiler here that we already automated that stuff. So that's will be pushed once we actually merge and stabilize existing VNet to VNet test case pushed by Volodymyr. So then we know that here's our root folder for all automation, and then we will start adding more test cases. So that's something that we already have and going to upstream soon. So that's that I mentioned. So hyphen. So that's something need to add. So maybe even volunteers can to do that. I don't know. Right now, our target is to close VNet to VNet. So I would like that people also comment if something is missed here. That's will be really nice, so that we will know. This, but anyway, so this is work in progress. So we already actually extended number of test cases to the ENI creation test plan, for example, to adjust to the recent changes, because when I created this test plan, we had a little bit different API ENI create. And also VNet to VNet. So that's one is more like fresh because use case. So that's we are currently work in progress on it. So that's I split it to the outbound, inbound test cases, and some integration test cases, negative, scale, and performance. And I put some section to clarify and of future plans that we are not covering right now. So maybe to the next phases we will add it.
What does the negative mean? What's your definition of negative?
Okay, yeah, sure. So I will show. So that's something that we actually, so that's from Volodymyr's test. So we are something that already covered test cases. So this is for outbound, inbound, integration negative. So like, so that's we want to send, for example, traffic for invalid VIP with valid, for example, VNI, but invalid MAC. So that's we need to check that drops, that traffic does drop, and also invalid configuration. I also think that at least we should not crash, that we should see the reject of the comments.
I see. Cool.
Yeah, so scaling performance we haven't defined yet, so that's for future. And yes, once we have, by the way, that's stabilized framework for the high scale and high traffic, high rate traffic sending. So that's we're going then to set some use cases here. So right now it's like for the future work. So here I'm not sure that we should stop right on that meeting, but like you can take a look. So that's some questions that I put to clarify. Really, I will be happy if somebody will take a comment, because, for example, at this moment I just looked, for example, VM, VNI, VNet ID, and the INI create. So that's I need to understand. Like I would like to have a comment about the relation. Actually, what's the reason how both are used? What we expect to have in each one? Because for example, from existing test cases, it's not fully clear, how it's used.
Right,
Also,
Anton, we can discuss that in the behavioral model meeting or internally as well. Yeah.
Okay, yeah, but anyway, so like I saw that Prince assigned somebody to review that from the Microsoft team. I also would like, because we have some statements in the HLD, but yeah, so if there will be some examples, use cases that I need, so that's for future. Anyway, so like I expect that that lists will end up with scenarios here. So like I'm expecting that list will become shorter and shorter, and list of tests longer and longer, like for the future.
Sounds good.
So okay, so that's our current activity. So that's we're working on that test plan right now and on the automation.
Right. So just want to mention to everyone that tomorrow in the SCI community call, we will be presenting all the work that's been done in terms of Dash automated test framework, as well as the test cases. We have the PRs for them. We need to merge them to SCI, OCP SCI. So we'll start with the review, and code review is already sort of in progress, and Prince has assigned someone to take a look, which is really helpful. I just want to mention that Prince also gave a comment that we need to use the, bulk APIs. So yeah, we have plans to start using the bulk APIs, and the single API tests are, as they get completed, we will be switching to the bulk APIs, and that work will also be upstreamed.
Yeah, so that's
I'm not sure that the bulk APIs are supported in the P4 behavior model libsci. So we may have an issue there. Also, there's no Git accessors or set accessors as well.
I see. So if we add it in the test case, you're saying the BM behavioral model may not work. Prince, any comments? I think it will work for hardware for sure, right? If it is implemented, it should work in the hardware.
Yeah, but, I think we're mainly looking for the site thrift implementation and the hardware, right? So it should be fine.
Okay.
Well, we have to think about this a little bit. If we're writing test cases that we want to run in the model and on hardware, and if we have them now, who besides, let's say, Intel's implementation, which is, in your lab, how would we run these test cases today?
Absolutely. No, we'll have both ways for sure. Even if we implement the bulk APIs, the single API calls would also be there. So nothing should be broken for sure. That something that's already working. Yeah.
Chris, if I understand, also like you, so that's we also need to think how to skip such test cases for the CI, because otherwise, like we will have failures per PR per commit. Do I understand you correct?
Yes. If we have a production test case that uses a bulk API right now, it will fail on the BMV2 model unless we do more work in that area. And PTF is not real convenient in terms of marking test cases. That's where PyTest is a little better, but maybe someone else has an idea of how to do that. We need to, maybe we organize it by directory or something, but we need a way to know which tests will run in hardware only and which ones will run BMV2.
But generally, this is Gerald again. The goal of the Dash group is to build the behavioral model. We don't have hardware in Dash. I mean, obviously we'll test hardware as a consumer, but this group is supposed to be, defining the behavioral model, the APIs, the tests. And so it can't be that the hardware is doing it one way and the behavioral model does it a different way or can't support what the hardware does. It should be identical. But if anything, it should be driven through the behavioral model, not the other way around.
But Gerald, at the end of the day, you are testing the SI APIs, right? Also, so if you have an implementation underneath the SI, which is any hardware, then essentially you are testing the hardware, aren't you?
But my point is, there's no hardware here in this group. Dash is a behavioral model. There's no hardware. Hardware is something that suppliers build against the Dash behavioral models and APIs. It's like this group here is not building hardware, not even disclosing the software. In fact, there's no disclosure of people's implementations. So my point is that if we're writing test cases that we want all hardware to basically pass, then you have to start with the behavioral model, and then everybody will have to match that if they want to get into the network. I don't really understand where the hardware is coming from as far as like what this group needs to accomplish.
Gerald,
Right. Rather than focusing on hardware at the moment, maybe I can say that there are these two parts. One is the test cases themselves, to actually contain all the things that we need to test all the Dash APIs, and they should be enhanced to support all the requirements, all the use cases, all the paths, that code flows that we want to test, and the APIs. And the second part is to use the behavioral model to depict everything, the functionality in software itself. So I guess we will have to. It is just my thought that we have to work on both the test cases as well as the behavioral model to sort of at some point be in sync and continue that work until they're in sync.
Yeah,
that's the goal, right? Always this should be the goal.
So Gerald, can I just provide some perspective here? I completely agree from the terms of aspirationally, what we want is a full software simulation of the Dash pipeline and the APIs to it. But there's never really been any, in my recollection, commitment that we're going to somehow collectively put all the work necessary to do that. And the gaps I see are a complete SI library that implements all the APIs and all the semantics, including bulk set and get and all those APIs, which we just realized now are missing. And also even the underlay behavior that's not supported in our current BMV2 model. I don't know of any plans to do that. And some of the test cases are going to assume, the production test cases are going to assume underlay capabilities and configuration. So we have these pretty big gaps. What we have is, I think, an unspoken understanding among many people that the BMV2 will implement more or less the overlay test cases, but not necessarily all the SI APIs or all the nuances. So maybe that discussion needs to be had, and maybe tomorrow's meeting can bring that up. But there's a huge amount of effort to close those gaps and make behavioral model closer to the hardware. And I don't know if there's, really a mandate or an incentive or a motivation to invest that much work in it. I don't know how that will happen. It's hours of work of people who really, of the expert level people to make that happen.
I think we need to discuss that because that was the mandate of Dash, right? Dash doesn't have hardware. It doesn't. There's no open source associated with it as under the covers, right? The hardware doesn't open source anything. So, I mean, from the beginning, we're building a behavioral model that would be an exact replica of hardware. So, yeah, we do have a disconnect. We should discuss.
Gerald, just one point into relation to the marking that Chris mentioned. So at this moment, marking is required for us, not just because, we are writing some tests on the hardware and some tests on the BMV2 should be, the behavior should be different. No, at the end, the whole test cases should be run on the behavior too. But the marking stuff that Chris is talking about is just to, select what test cases are currently on the BMV2 and can be run on the CI, and that's it. But at the end, once the BMV2 has the all functionality ready, so all test cases should be absolutely run on the BMV2, and there should not be any difference in the test cases. This should be run on the BMV2 like this, and that test case should be run on the hardware like this. No, so that test case will be run like on the BMV2. This is the goal, right?
Yeah. Eventually, I want to run all the test cases in the cloud and build bigger test models, but that should be the goal.
Sounds good.
Yep.
Anything else we want to discuss today?
If there's no other question, I actually have one.
Sure.
I'd like, so if Prince is here, because I'd like to ask whether there is any progress doing with preparing Sonic management as framework for the Dash, because I'm interested in want to be ready in advance. Actually, what the topology will have, how it will look like, whether maybe some test cases or at least test plans were started to be ready, preparing.
Yeah. I think, Anton, we are referring your VNet to VNet test plan, and we are starting working on the Sonic management test implementation. But the infrastructure part is already available. Like you can refer the PRs related to the DPO and the appliance in the Sonic management. So that should be already say we have currently T0, T1, those kinds of topologies. So similarly, we have introduced an appliance or DPU based topology as well with 2-port architecture. So it's present in Sonic management. Maybe you can take a look. If not, you can just feel free to ping me. I'll share the PRs with Reshma. Yeah.
This is great. Yeah, thank you, Prince. I think Anton and Voldemir were asking a few times about the Sonic management, but there is a lot of progress already.
Yeah, so the infrastructure, we are taking it in different phases. So one is setting up the infrastructure with so that we can just run the regular, let's say, underlay BGP and those kinds of tests. The second is the VNet to VNet. So for the VNet to VNet, we are referring to the plan that we just shared today.
Yeah, I will actually appreciate if you send PR numbers or something, because I already opened Sonic management. I'm trying to find it.
Yeah, if you get a chance to post them to this chat, even after the meeting, I think we can access it. It'll be helpful.
Yeah, okay.
Thanks, Prince.
Thank you. Anything else we want to discuss today? Any comments on the previous week's presentation from Chris's side, or comments on AMD Pensando's HA proposal that was presented yesterday? It's an ongoing review that's been going on for quite a few weeks, but just want to ask everyone here.
Hey, Reshma, just not for the previous presentations,
okay,
but in fact for the future presentation, which is for tomorrow, right? I just want to leave one thought out based on my recent experiences, right? And then that is about testing of the infrastructure itself, test infrastructure itself. So I just want to see, if we give some thoughts into how we are testing our own test infrastructure itself, and then also to see that, okay, are all the things that we are claiming they're working are really working? Are there any examples that essentially we have tried it out, and then that shows that, okay, if test infrastructure is supporting this functionality, we do have to have those examples, and then saying that, okay, we have tried them out and they are indeed working, so that people who want to try this one out, like adding more test cases or adding more files in certain directives and ensuring that some of the scripts are really picking up those files and then really trying them out. So just testing the test infrastructure itself, right? So those are the things that if you give some thoughts into it as you guys present tomorrow's presentation, to say that, okay, yes, all of those things have been weeded out, and then people who want to add new things to it, we believe that they will work fine. So I think just a food for thought here. So
Sounds good. Yeah. That sounds good. In tomorrow's call, we'll discuss this some more. Waldemar Mitnick also has noted some test cases and portions of the test case that he has tested out on hardware, and things that it may or may not work in the BMV2, etc. So if we talk about that, then we can add those items into our to-do list that Christina used to maintain, and then proceed on how to add that into BMV2 as well. Yeah, I think that's a great idea. We can do that.
Yeah.
Thank you.
So, Hanif, I'd like to make a comment or response to that, and thanks for the observations. You definitely were a good litmus test for how ready is the test infrastructure for someone just to kind of wade in and try it. Someone who maybe not deep into PTF and test world. So I can say that I put in a lot of the infrastructure to run these test workflows and the Cythrift server, containers and whatnot. I did that work a couple months ago, and it's sort of a placeholder waiting for test cases to drop into, but there's not been any kind of test of the test framework itself. It's being tested indirectly by people adding test cases. And, maybe that's not the best way to go about it, but that's based on who has time available to do these kinds of things. But if you have a few specific examples of things that broke, and I know you've mentioned some things in some threads, that would help. But there's no concerted effort to test the test framework. It's being tested by adding test cases and seeing how it works. But if you have ideas to improve that would be great.
Sure. No, definitely we'll do that. And I think this may basically come out because of lack of documentation also, because you keep trying things and you expect this thing to work in a certain way, but it doesn't. And then you say, oh, by the way, maybe perhaps this is the only way it works. So hopefully, I think between the documentation and between trying certain things out, we can weed those things out and then, straighten out all those wrinkles.
Yeah, and there's always room for improvement. And every time someone new tries something, in fact, someone who's less experienced in that domain, it points out the shortcomings of the documentation or even the infrastructure. So it's always welcome to have brave volunteers trying things out, and then don't just sweep things under the rug. Report everything, and you've been good about that. But this is not a commercial product, right? This is an organic community project, and so effort gets applied where it needs to be, sort of in a as needed basis. So here's where we can probably sharpen our pencils a bit and make it better.
Yeah, no, that sounds good. I think as we are all volunteers here, as you know, right? So we can go ahead and fix issues as we run into them, wherever possible, whether it's a documentation issue, infrastructure issue, or even the BMV2 code, P4 code implementation issue, or whatnot, right? So
yeah, your feedback's always been really spot on and timely. So please keep it coming, you and everyone for that matter. Don't sweep things under the rug. Bring them to shine a flashlight on them so we can fix them.
well articulated. Yeah, thank you, Honey, as well. Anything else that we want to discuss today, or we could, give a couple of minutes back.
Great job, Reshma. Thanks for filling.
Thank you, Chris. Thank you, everyone, for joining. Gerald, if you
Thanks,
could please,
Reshma. Yeah.
Thanks. Gerald, if you could please stop the recording.
I will figure that out. There.
Okay. Thank you very much. Thank you.